There are more salon industry podcasts today than ever before, but are they actually delivering what salon professionals want? Today's episode is a little different. Instead of interviewing an expert, we're sitting down with three salon owners to have an honest conversation about the podcast they listen to, what they love, what drives them crazy, and what they wish more podcast hosts understood. Welcome to the Salon Scoop, the podcast that helps salon owners and salon professionals grow their business, boost their brand, and stay inspired. From salon marketing and social media to leadership and growth, we uncover the strategies and stories that move the industry forward. If you love learning, growing, and are serious about leveling up your salon business and brand, you've just found your new go-to podcast. Today on the Salon Scoop, we're going to do something a little different. Instead of interviewing a guest about a specific topic, we're doing something closer to a focus group conversation. We're doing a podcast about podcasts. So for any of my Seinfeld lovers out there, think of it like this. It's like Kramer's coffee table book about coffee tables. As a podcast host, my goal obviously is to make this show as valuable as possible for all salon professionals. So I thought, why not go straight to the source and ask people directly about their podcast listening habits? What do they enjoy about industry podcasts? What makes them hit play or hit skip? What kinds of conversations are they actually hoping to hear more of? So today, I'm joined by three salon professionals who are here to share their honest perspectives as listeners. I don't want to just improve this podcast. It's meant to spark a broader conversation about how industry podcasts can better serve the professionals they're meant to support. So if you like podcasts, which I assume you do if you're listening, this should be an interesting and fun conversation for you. So let's get into it. I want to start by getting to know our guests today. Could you, each of you, please maybe briefly introduce yourselves to our audience just by sharing your career path so our listeners know sort of what your industry experience is and what your kind of role is in today's world?
Yes, my name is Jamie Ducher. I own Canvas Salon and Gallery outside of Buffalo, New York, and I also own Polished Nail Bar outside of Buffalo, New York. So one is a focused hair salon, one is a focused nail salon. They are both employee-based salons, and the hair salon is a hybrid model. So we serve our community locally, and we are focused on health and wellness within our shops. And I am the owner of both. I am no longer taking clients, but running my team.
Nice.
My name is Sonia Yerkani. I am the owner of Evolve Hair Studio in Toronto. I've been in the industry for 2 decades, and I actually used to have a podcast. This is where I met Scott. It was called The Elevated Stylist. At some point, we used to host wellness retreats for hairstylists where we used to teach hair and mindfulness. And the podcast we used to have was called Shop Talk, where we would do similar things as talk about industry issues or things that would help the industry advance. And I do have an employee-based commission salon, and currently I am back behind the chair, super part-time, but I do manage my team, much like Jamie does. So that's where I'm at.
Love it.
My name is Georgia Reynolds, and I manage a salon team in Toronto, a salon called Untitled by Flaunt Boutique. And my career path began behind the chair 32 years ago. And I've sort of had 3 parts of career: 10 years behind the chair, 10 years working for a manufacturer, and now 10 years managing and coaching. And I do not take clients. I stopped taking clients about 5 years ago. So my focus is similar to the other two, building and growing the team to be not only technically sound clients as stylists, but also sort of well-rounded professionals beyond the technical expertise.
Love that. Well, thank you all for being here today and for showing up and engaging in this conversation with me. Let's just start with this. I mean, everybody out there always loves new podcast suggestions. So maybe could you each share with us one or two podcast shows that you listen to the most? Doesn't have to be industry related, just a great podcast that you love that you listen to the most. Maybe we'll start with Georgia, then go to Sonia, and then Jamie.
Recently, I haven't been listening to a lot of new podcasts for sure, but I tend to listen to more leadership ones. I really have always loved Brene Brown's podcast because of her. Yeah, Brene Brown's podcast I've always really loved.
I love Brene Brown's podcast. It's awesome. But lately, I've been really binging on Diary of a CEO. I absolutely love Steve Bartlett's. Like, just the topics are so relevant right now. I'm currently taking a lot of stroller walks, so it just gives me something to do on my stroller walks. And I also like this other one called To Be Magnetic. They talk a lot about energy and like epigenetics and neural manifestation. And I feel like those two are really big powerhouses for the mindset.
I always have listened to Entree Leadership with Dave Ramsey. I always love that podcast because it's all different industries calling in, talking about different business problems and kind of troubleshooting. And the other person that I binge all the time and will never stop is Britt Siva. I just absolutely love her. She just has so much industry insight and, somebody that I go to weekly. So those are my top two.
Love that. Love that. I'm big on Diary of CEO as well. I listen to a lot of Ed Milet, the Ed Milet show, a lot of leadership as well. So that's kind of where I gravitate to. And lately, I've been into a lot of sort of health and longevity episodes. So there's the Human Upgrade is one in particular that I love as well. So anyhow, that's fun for people to just kind of always know what's out there that other people listen to, especially when you're in the same sort of categories. I'm also a true crime lover, so if anyone wants to talk true crime, we can do that offline sometime. All right, let's start with some listening habits. How often do each of you listen to podcasts in general, right? And when do you normally listen to them? We heard from Sonia that is through carriage walks often. So how often do you listen to them? When do you normally listen to them? And about how many different salon industry podcasts are part of your overall rotation? Sonia, let's kick it off with you since you already talked about your baby carriage walks.
Yeah, so I do have morning walks with my dog and my baby. So I practically listen to like a podcast every morning. I don't finish it all the time, but it does carry on into the next day. And I would say that in the rotation of it all, the salon one is probably like one every like 3 or 4 podcasts. Because the salon ones are typically tend to be a little bit shorter, I find, and my stroller walks are about an hour and a half. So I do kind of combine 2 at the same time within the week, and I find that it's been really helpful. Where I just kind of stack a wellness one, a mindset one, and an industry one, and they all kind of hit different parts of where I'm at and what I want to do.
Cool. Who wants to share next?
I will. I designate Mondays for my industry podcast time. The shop's closed. I find that's like my start of my work week, and I take those industry podcasts like to heart for that week and try to listen and apply or whatnot, just so I'm constantly staying engaged week over week. I think, in the past I had the tendency to over listen. So like I love, Sonia, that you can listen to it every morning, but I'd get too like crazy with it and it would be like information overload for me. So I've decided that it's definitely good for me to designate a day just with how my mind works and how I work at work. So I've stuck the industry podcast to Mondays. During the week, I do listen to a handful of health related podcasts. I haven't really settled on anything in particularly yet. I am a breast cancer survivor, so I've been listening to a Life After Cancer podcast, and I do listen to that like when I'm at the gym. just to give me some context of health and wellness and kind of switch up my listening schedule a little bit. Um, and, focus on nutrition and things like that as well. So I kind of assign the podcast to like my activity, if you will, So like Mondays is work, industry podcast, while I'm at the gym or before I go in for treatment or something of that nature, I have my health related podcast. So it kind of just helps me get in the mood for like whatever I'm focusing on in that moment.
Nice.
I'm a little closer to Jamie that I can get really overwhelmed with the information overload. So, and I found I did go through a phase where I was listening to everything and then it just started to get tangled up together. And so I tend to not listen specifically regularly, but when I'm thinking about something or when I'm processing something or I'm trying to solve a problem, I'll often go to Spotify and search podcasts for that topic. And so sometimes it comes up with an industry option, or sometimes it comes up with something different. And sometimes I listen to that podcast once and never again. And sometimes I get into a role and listen to it 3, 4, 5, 10 times. But I tend to not listen so regularly, but use it as a reference or a resource, especially on my way to work because it's about 20 minutes. So.
And so is that when you typically listen to podcasts, is kind of on your way to work, like in the car or?
Transit. Yeah, I transit, but yeah, that's my
Transit.
ideal time and is when I'm on my way to work.
Got it. Yeah, podcast typically is a multitask option, whether it's in transit, whether it's people going for a walk at the gym. That's very common for me. It's during gym workout mode usually is when I listen to it. So let's get into specifically thinking about salon industry podcasts. So when you are listening to salon industry podcasts, curious to know how you choose an episode to listen to. Or like what motivates you to actually press play on an episode or different shows, and what are you hoping to get out of it? Let's go in reverse order here. So Georgia, Jamie, then Sonia.
So like I said, what motivates me is that I'm already looking for a thought or a process. So it's what comes up in my search when I search that or that topic. And if it looks like it is relevant, I'll listen. And sometimes I listen just for 3 to 5 minutes and think, no, they're not what I want. And other times I'll listen to it right through. Especially if it's challenging me. So sometimes I can dismiss it and say, no, that's not for me. But if I'm like, oh, I don't know if I like this at all, that's often the times I listen to it the longest based on I'm looking for a solution. So I need to listen to something that's out of my comfort zone or out of my thought process.
Interesting. Okay.
I don't necessarily go looking for like a specific topic because I'm on like my weekly schedule. Mondays I'm listening to Brit. Most of the time I put Gina Bianca on too, which is how I heard about this company. And so, I will play both on the weekly schedule just to make sure I'm caught up. But EntreLeadership, when I'm listening to that, I kind of look at the title and like I'll do a quick read on like the description of the guest that day to see if it's something that I want to include in my listening time. And again, like with my gym, with my health and wellness things that I'm listening to, I'm kind of just going by my weekly routine with it. I'm not necessarily looking for anything. If I don't feel like I relate to the title, I might go back to like past episodes or look further back maybe when they started and I wasn't listening to them yet. But I'm pretty routine with like staying with the latest of the week release, if you will.
Got it. Okay, so for your salon industry ones, you have a couple of shows that you follow and you make sure that you listen every week to pretty much every episode.
Yes.
Got it. Okay. And Sonia, how about yourself when it comes to specifically salon industry podcasts?
I would say I look at the title and then I read the description, and if that matches for me and if it feels right for me inside. I'm very much about energy. So I approach things like, how am I feeling today? And what is it that I want to process, or what is it that I want to learn? I've always been attracted to leadership, communication. I'm a big numbers person. Things like that really attract me, especially if they're positioned in a way that are current, and the things that we're currently maybe feeling in the industry. I really enjoy topics like that. So I tend to go more towards the title and the description. And then I'll listen maybe for a minute, and I feel like if it doesn't resonate, I'm like, okay, I'll just table that, and then I'll go find another podcast. So I'm very much about how I feel on that day, and then I'll see if it matches my energy. If the title attracts me, I'm like very much into the hooks. They always get me all the time. So the words are what attracts me. And oftentimes, like not all the time do the words that they describe or the things that they put in the description matches the podcast that they're putting out. Sometimes podcasts can get really just rambling and they just go in different directions. So I have to discern whether I want to invest my time in those in that 20 to 25 minutes. So if that's not it, then I go to the next podcast. Or sometimes I just don't address it. I'm like, another day.
Fair enough.
Let's talk about some specific topics. Again, we're thinking salon industry. What are types of topics or conversations that tend to be the most valuable or interesting for you to listen to? Jamie, let's start with you this time.
I really appreciate conversation or topics on, the business and leadership side. Right now I've been enjoying conversation on like motivating staff financially, looking at like how to do different commission splits or bonuses, like compensation, things that I feel like most of our industry is very outdated on, as far as business goes. And I think a lot of us are trying to kind of scramble to get ahead with that. And we don't really have a lot of sure footing. So I feel like the podcast kind of brings some awareness to that and start that conversation and, amongst other people, not just myself, but I'm always looking to listen and connect with, just updated ways of doing business with, whether it's with your staff or with your guests, just to kind of stay ahead of that so that we're not falling out of date.
Nice. Georgia, anything different on your side of topics or conversations that you enjoy the most or look for the most when it comes to salon industry?
I'm similar to Jamie in the sense that I'm looking for innovative solutions to industry business challenges, especially things that are transferable, which is why I think sometimes listening outside of our industry is helpful. But what's transferable from other industries in the business way of running. And the other piece that I look for is different ways of offering service. So what is like a sense of service? Sense of service is really interesting to me because we have a routine in our industry, and this is like what service looks like. And I think it can look differently. And so again, outside of the industry, I look for that to see what's transferable into the industry.
Nice. Sonia, anything different from, again, a topics, conversation, type of information you're looking for?
I really enjoy the marketing aspect of things because I'm always really interested. And I do look outside of the industry, but I do love when podcasts really talk about how we can market to our customers, because buying patterns have changed, booking patterns have changed, the economy has changed. And I love when there's podcasts that give you frameworks or that give you direct things that you can learn from that podcast that you can implement, even if it's one tip or like one tool or something that you're like, oh, I've been thinking about that, but I didn't know how it worked, or I've been hearing about this, but I didn't know how it worked. Those types of things are really valuable for me. And also the conversation around like commission structures and like how we can run our salons more efficiently as costs increase, and how can we increase our margins, how can we get creative. So I always love thinking outside the box kind of solutions, and how we can rework things that have already worked in our industry. So like word of mouth marketing, things like that have already worked, that have been proven, but how can we bring it into like the modern world? So I look for like really interesting little nuances that can capture my attention and make me feel like, oh, that's kind of cool. I never thought about that.
Nice. Okay, I want to delve into that a little bit more in terms of the nuances, the things that kind of like keep you engaged in a podcast versus get you to kind of tune out and flip out. And this would be for any podcast that you're listening to, not just industry related. So maybe we can start with you, Jamie. Sort of, what are some of the things that I guess the host or the conversation is doing well that keeps you in, versus some of the things that make you lose interest and stop listening before the end of a podcast?
I guess I really appreciate, when a host talks about a problem, has the conversation leading to a result. So it's not like just like an long-winded discussion where you only have one result at the end, but like you have several conclusions throughout the podcast. That usually keeps me most engaged, because you're kind of having these mini light bulb moments as the podcast goes on. And it's not just like one session only, one result at the end kind of thing. And some of them don't even get to a result at the end. So some of them are just talking, nonstop. So I appreciate offering solutions throughout the discussion, if you will.
Yep. Love that. Sonia, how about yourself? Things that
Yeah,
keep you
I would
drawn
definitely
in versus
think
things that make you stop listening.
Yeah, what Jamie said was really well described, that it's almost like these little light bulb moments. But now, like reflecting a little bit deeper on that, I also really enjoy when the host almost has like this devil's advocate type of dialogue as well, just to like question really what the person is saying. I feel like that invites more dialogue and gets deeper and deeper into things. And that always keeps me interested, because it's not just like a one-sided conversation where you bring on the expert, they tell you what they need to tell you and you agree with them. I really love that kind of like a debate, I guess you could say. Just playing devil's advocate to be like, hey, like, but tell me a little bit more about this, or like, is that really the case, or is it something else? And I really enjoy, because that kind of just dives a little bit deeper underneath the surface of the topic, which kind of is similar to what Jamie said, but a little bit more on the side.
Nice. Georgia?
I would agree with both what Jamie and Sonia said. And because when I go looking for a podcast, I'm generally looking for a solution to a problem that I haven't thought of. So I do like sort of what would happen if type conversations that you're able to play out, as opposed to saying this is the solution or this is not the solution. Oftentimes I find my favorite solution, or my most effective solution, is one somewhere between a yes and a no. And so that what would happen if kind of conversations are really interesting to me, because then
Georgia,
I can apply them to my own experience.
Yeah. Georgia, what makes you stop listening to a podcast to say, you know what, like, no, this isn't for me, I'm not feeling it, and you just stop listening altogether?
I tend not to listen to solo podcasts when it's just one person talking. And then when the description of the problem is too generic or too vague, I don't feel confident that the conversation about the solution is going to be specific and actionable, or give me that light bulb moment or that one little tidbit. So when it's too vague or too general, I tend to say, oh, this one's not going to give me what I need.
Nice. Okay, that's a great insight. And actually, it leads to the next question that I wanted to ask, was sort of the style of podcasts that people like or dislike. So I was going to ask, do you prefer solo episodes, interviews with guests, or sort of, roundtable discussions that have several people sharing opinions. Um, let's maybe start with you, Sonia, and then we'll go to Georgia and Jamie.
I like the one-on-one podcasts. For me, I tend to tune out when there's like too many people talking about the same topic. Just in my own, the way that my brain operates is because I often find that sometimes the conversation can go somewhere else and it doesn't stay focused unless the host really has the ability to like keep the roundtable really engaged and kind of in alignment, because I've listened to podcasts where there's like three or four or five people and it just gets lost, and then I'm lost, and then I was like, oh, like what were we talking about, what am I listening to? So for me, solo podcasts are not really something that I love, much like Georgia, and too much like roundtable, like the host has to really be like on it, be prepared, and like really kind of control the room, rather than letting the guests control the room. So one-on-one expert is like my favorite.
Okay. Georgia, how about yourself? You kind of told us that you don't like solo. What what's the format that works best for you?
I do like interview and conversation style for sure. I do like a round table, but it is true that if it's not well guided or well hosted, it can feel a bit chaotic to me. Um, but sometimes there's some really great chaotic conversations too that organically end up somewhere. So, but a round table like 3, 4 people is good. The conversational is really my favorite.
Nice. Okay. And
I feel
Jamie?
like I feel like I have a mix of both. The one industry podcast that I love, Brett Siva, I mean, she's solo predominantly on her episodes. Sometimes she'll get rolling, and I kind of got to be like, all right, girl, you got to calm down. Like lately, she's been doing a ton of plugging on her programs, and it's really turning me off. So like, I'm like, okay, let's stay focused on our conversation. Let's not derail for like just to market what you're doing at this moment in time. I'm most likely going to participate. I don't need to hear it 25 times. But I definitely can vary. I enjoy the conversation podcasts where there's like an interview or a call in, and again, leading back to problem solving. But I don't mind the solo as long as we're getting to the point.
Makes sense. Well, and let's getting to the point. That's a good one. Let's talk about like the length of podcasts, because sometimes it can just draw out too long. But you also each at the beginning talked about when you listen to podcasts, sometimes also determines how long of a podcast you might want to be listening to. So, what's the ideal length of a, let's talk it, salon industry podcast for yourself? Let's go, Jamie, Sonia, Georgia.
I like the half hour spot. I think that's a comfortable amount of time to absorb something. I think 15 minutes is a little too quick. I don't feel like I'm getting enough out of it, but a half hour is a nice amount of time. I don't feel like it's taking a huge chunk out of my day. I will listen to our podcasts, depending on where I'm in the day. Do I have a long drive to make? Am I going to be at the gym for an hour? Am I alone in the salon for the day, doing book work or whatever? But I generally think like a half hour is like the sweet spot for me.
For me, because I'm on my long carriage walks, I do enjoy the 55 minutes. I find that that's like it takes me like, about 15 minutes to get into it, to like get my body like to be like, okay, we're going to absorb this information. And then so from like 55 minutes, or from 15 to 55 minutes, that 40 minutes of like really good juicy information, I feel like so anywhere between 40 and 55 minutes is really good for me, to get what I want out of it.
Nice.
I would say 20 to 30 minutes is ideal for me, before I want to walk away and marinate in it.
Okay. And is that just based on your interest of kind of like booking it, or is it based on your transit time and kind of what you have time for and you want to listen to the whole thing, or is it just
I would say it's more my attention span. I want to go for 20, maybe 30 minutes is perfect, and process that, and then come back and process the next level and process the next level or the next perspective. But it's probably more my attention span than anything else.
Got it. So I have two quick follow-up questions. Georgia, if you see a podcast, a salon industry podcast, that's an hour long or 55 minutes, do you just kind of, for the most part, maybe tune it out and go and try to find something else instead?
Likely, if it was something super interesting or super relevant, I've listened to some biographies that were 55 minutes, and that caught my attention. But if it's information to absorb, probably I'll make an assumption that that's going to be too long and drawn out, and I'll decide not to listen to it.
Fair. And Sonia, on the flip side, if you see salon industry podcast that's just, 15, 20 minutes, are you more likely to just not bother?
Most likely, yeah. Because I don't know. I just skip through it because of my long carriage walks. Like, I need something that I'm gonna just put in my ear, put my phone away, and just like walk and absorb and enjoy, rather than it finish in 20 minutes. Then I have to go back and I have to find another podcast. I mean, I don't have to find another podcast, but I love enjoying the information and listening to it while I'm walking. So for me, I find usually 20 minutes too, unless it's like a topic that the person's like, I'm going to give you these 5 steps of like how you're going to improve communication with your team. Listen up. Like, it's going to be a quick one, but it's going to be powerful. If that's the case, then like I'll definitely tune in, but I may not do it on my walks. I might just like save it and like listen to it like at the salon when I'm doing my work or something else. So I don't discount it completely, but in my regular routine, I probably wouldn't add it in my routine. I'd save it for a time where I'm like, oh, I only have 20 minutes. Let me just tune into this little podcast. So there is room for it. And I feel like if the host can really dial in on the topic, I feel like with our attention spans nowadays, we have to be so direct and like we have to be dialed in on what we're talking about. And this is something that I'm learning with content creation, is that we can be very vague in the things that we're explaining. And I think that's what loses people. But if we're very engaging and direct and like we're talking about something specific and we're holding that thought, that's what I believe is what captures you, whether it's in 20 minutes or it's in 40 minutes. I think the articulation of that topic is what's going to keep things engaged.
Love that. Well said. And I appreciate that you all have, different opinions, different feelings, different likes, different dislikes. It shows me as a podcast host how complex it is to, find the right topics, the right format, the right length that's going to kind of draw in as many people as possible. Well, what we tried to do actually is a whole variety of having some short episodes, some long episodes, some solo episodes, some interview episodes, some roundtable episodes, to try to have a little bit of everything, because you never know, as we're experiencing here, different people have different desires, different interests, and you kind of have to tune into that. So I want to ask one final question, and it's going to be a specific piece of advice that each of you can give. I mean, me specifically as a podcast host, but really any podcast host for a salon industry podcast. What advice would you give to a salon industry podcast host to be able to deliver on, the best possible podcast for both yourself, but also thinking about, the salon industry in terms of what's needed? Jamie, I'll start with you here.
I think really just focusing on the things that our industry doesn't have a lot of access to. We have tons of education on technique and product and color and application and all of that, but we don't have tons of education on business, accounting, taxes, marketing, things of that nature. And I think that those are the things that I know salon owners and stylists too, who are independent, are looking for that support and that help, and it's not as readily available to them. I also think too, like just personally, I would love if the podcast hosts, if they were not going so back and forth in every single episode, that maybe if they had a span of 3 to 5 episodes focused on a topic with different variations, and then had another 3 to 5 episodes focused on a different topic with variations. This way that information kind of is able to get absorbed and revisited instead of like kind of hopping around too much.
Interesting. Nice. Very nice feedback. Okay. Georgia, how about yourself?
Having 2 or 3 or 5 episodes on a topic would resonate with me completely because of the way I like to absorb information. So I would love that. Because right now, what I do is just go from podcast to podcast as opposed to staying with one. So that was a great suggestion, Jamie. I like that one. And for me, it would be in the same category of what we don't have access to, but really kind of pushing the status quo of our industry, like the status quo that you have to work more to make more, and the status quo that that we're not a profitable industry, and the status quo that we are only as good as our last client. Like, so any topic that's pushing that status quo mentality that some of our industry is still holding on to is very interesting to me.
Great. Thank you. Sonia, we'll finish with you. One piece of advice for me and all other industry podcast hosts.
I would say I love relevant topics. I love things that we're struggling with in the industry. Like Jamie said, like the business aspect of it, the technique we're like really flooded with. But I feel like the business aspect of it in terms of like the marketing, but the challenges that we're facing today, I think is really relevant to me. And like, for example, how AI is coming through. I've been listening to a lot of podcasts on that. And in terms of, I do also enjoy the thread of like talking about a specific topic multiple times. That creates like this open loop, almost like I'm invited to come back. I feel like there's a lot of one topic, one offers, and it's like taking one topic and expanding it into like 5 different ways is something that I would also be interested in, whether it's a 20-minute podcast or a 40-minute podcast. I believe that would be so interesting to me. And also bringing on maybe not industry professionals, people that are like outside of our industry, like tax specialists or marketing specialists, branding specialists, things like that. I would be interested in, because those are the things that I look at when I'm looking at podcasts. I like go for a specific topic, and then it's has probably nothing to do with our industry. And there are in some podcasts that people bring outside of industry people, and that's what I really love, because it's a transferable skill. And I think that we are in a time in our lives in the industry where we have to really up level to continue to keep up with the way that the world is changing. And there's so many information out there. And I think tapping into the outside of the industry information is super valuable.
Love that. Great, great suggestions, all of you. Thank you very much. I think what I love about conversations like these specifically is that they remind me, I think it reminds all of us, the podcast is all about the listeners. And if we don't really understand what the listeners want, then we can't deliver the right thing for them. Right? At the end of the day, our podcasts exist, right, to support our podcast exists, at least to support salon professionals who are trying to grow their careers, their businesses, their understanding of what it takes to be successful in this industry. So hearing directly from the three of you about what you value, what you're looking for, what keeps you engaged is incredibly valuable. And I just want to take a second to say thank you so much for taking the time to come on today and share your opinions with me and for all of our listeners out there. So thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
I'd love to hear from you, our listeners, if you're out there thinking, oh my gosh, like this is what I feel, this is what I like, this is what I want to do. I would love, for you to be able to share your opinion as well. And I want to add you into this conversation. As a result, I invite you to click on the link in the show notes to fill out a brief podcast quiz that we've created, where you can share your thoughts and podcast habits as well, to just kind of give us more insights. Everyone who participates will be given either free access to our AI training or a free item from our salon promo box which essentially has ready-made digital marketing materials like Instagram posts, Instagram reels, in-salon posters that you can use for your salon promotions. So that's a little thank you for everyone who goes and fills out that podcast quiz. The link is in the show notes. Because remember, the more that you help us understand how our podcast can serve you best, the better these conversations as a whole can become. Thanks for tuning into this unique episode, everyone, and have a great day. Thank you so much for listening to the Salon Scoop podcast. This show is produced by Salon S.O.S, a digital marketing agency by industry professionals for industry professionals. If you want simple and affordable solutions for any of your salon marketing needs, such as websites, client loyalty, Google search rankings, social media, or more, come visit us at salonsos.ca or on Instagram at salon.s.o.s. If you want to hear more episodes like this and help us continue to bring the industry great content, it would mean so much to us if you would support us in one of the following ways. Either share this episode with one other industry professional, and rate the show on Spotify or write us a quick review on Apple Music. We want to hear your feedback. If you have follow-up questions or ideas for future episodes, please reach out. DM us on Instagram at salonis.s.o.s or hit us up on our website again at salonsos.ca. Again, thanks so much for listening. Now go get your hustle on, keep smiling, and we'll catch you on our next episode.